And welcome back, everyone. We are so excited to be here for our plenary panel now. There for our neighbors, growing community connections in COVID. Community gardeners, urban farms, and neighborhood garden coalitions have gone above and beyond during COVID to support their communities. We're going to hear about community-based efforts in the pandemic with Brotherhood Sister Sol in Manhattan, 615 Green and Garden in Brooklyn, Bronx Community Farms Hubs in the Bronx, and Edgemere Farm in Queens. Panelists will discuss how they overcame the struggles posed by COVID and grew community connections through mutual aid, farming, and youth engagement programs. I'm thrilled to introduce Emilie Miyauchi, the moderator for this panel. Emilie is an educator and organizer working for the Prosperity of Solidarity Economy Enterprises in New York City and state with the Cooperative Economics Alliance for New York City, of New York City. Since 2018, she has been working in partnership with NYC Parks GreenThumb to develop the GreenThumb Leadership Academy, a training for community gardeners to deepen their personal and collective practice of democratic and cooperative principles in their gardens. Emilie is drawn to solidarity economy organizing because of its generative approach, believing that one way to repair the harms of racial capitalism is to sow the seeds of attitudes, behaviors, and relationships we want to see grow more abundant in this world. Thank you so much for being here, Emilie. I'm passing you the mic now.
Thanks so much, Mara. Thanks for organizing all of this. I know you've been carrying so much, really transitioning all of Grow Together onto this online space so that, you know, gardeners can keep on coming together. I know in person, it always felt like a big family reunion, and I hope some of that is still coming across online. I also want to thank Michael Twitty so much, especially for this reminder of the opportunity we have all been given as humans in multicultural societies to live these really full, rich lives and encounter all the blessing and frustration and healing we can bring to each other if we do the work. And that's really a lot of what mutual aid is about. So mutual aid is what we're talking about on this panel. And I'm going to offer just like a quick definition, although it's not an easily defined thing. It's something that has taken lots of different forms. So mutual aid is when people get together to meet each other's basic survival needs and make their lived conditions more survivable. So this is not charity where the rich give to the deserving poor, because like we know, we all deserve to be here on this earth and have all the things we need. So we come together in solidarity and self-reliance and in confirmation of our own agency. So this is participatory democracy, people jumping in and leveraging their assets to make the change they want to see happen right now. And so now we are going to hear about some direct examples of that happening in the boroughs of New York City and community gardens. And I'm going to introduce, first off, one of our panelists, Vanessa Seis from Edgemere Farm. And Vanessa is going to let us know a little bit about what's been going on in Edgemere Farm in the Rockaways. Are you ready, Vanessa?
I am. Thank you so much for the introduction, Emilie, and thank you for having me on this panel. Yeah, my name is Vanessa Seis. I'm a member of Edgemere Farm. We were founded in 2013 in the wake of Hurricane Sandy on an abandoned city-owned lot. And we are today a volunteer-run, zero-profit, half-acre urban farm in the Edgemere neighborhood of Far Rockaway. We produce organically grown produce, vegetables, herbs, and flowers. And we also have eggs and chicken and bees, sorry. And Edgemere Farm's mission is one of education and food justice and increasing capacity for the production of food and also the processing of food waste in the Rockaway. So we also have a very substantial composting program. And When the pandemic started, our immediate response was that we were actually able to harvest what was still in the ground, the winter hardy greens, and we were able to distribute them to local food markets as access to fresh produce was increasingly becoming difficult. So we were able to act quickly and jump in. And we also started coming up with a curbside contactless farm stand that we ran basically just like outside the gate of our farm, where we started selling our produce to members of the immediate community. And we historically always start the season with a Mother's Day plant sale. And luckily, because we have a pretty robust infrastructure here in the Rockaways, we were able to still grow our own seedlings, and we were actually able to grow more than we need to stock our plant sale, even just preparing for the eventuality that the GreenThumb seedlings were not coming through, that we usually also buy in for that plant sale. So we were really excited to be able to still do that. And it was so well received by the community because everybody was just looking to start their own gardens, was just utilizing any balcony space that they had that summer to grow their own food. And yeah, we were lucky enough to actually be able to provide the community with seedlings, but also with compost. We were able to accept a big delivery of compost from QVG, but also from DSNY, one of the last deliveries before they shut down the composting program. So we were able to give that away to the community and help them get started on their own gardens. And yeah, then throughout the season, we were able, because we are a pretty big urban farm, we were able to provide a space that people could come and engage socially distant and safe. And we saw so many members of the community come out and wanting to help and get their hands into the dirt. And yeah, we've always had this concept of mutual aid, and that you come and join us at Edgemere Farm, and in exchange for your labor, you walk home with free produce. So that has always been something that we've been able to offer. We're on slide 2. Yeah, and the other thing that we also did as an immediate response to the pandemic was that we saw the need within the Rockaways to accept food scraps as the city was shutting down the composting program. So we jumped on that very quickly, put out brown bins on the sidewalk, and people just dropped off their compost, and we started incorporating that into our own compost, making compost for us, but then of course compost that we could also throughout the season give away to members of the community to support them in their own gardening efforts. And yeah, then the other strong partnership that we formed, this is on slide 3, was a partnership with Rockaway Mutual Aid, which was founded in June 2020 with the mission of share resources across the Rockaway Peninsula. And what we were able to do, because we run a pretty productive space, we were able to contribute to the food distribution program that Rockaway Mutual Aid was running, and also the food fridges that they were placing throughout the Rockaways, and we were able to contribute with our own food and any access that we had. And that was really wonderful. And we were also able, because we have that large space where you can really gather safely, we were also able to host Rockaway Mutual Aid for events such as the fall solstice stone soup social, where members of the community were invited to make soup together that could then be enjoyed together on the premises in a safe manner, and also was distributed to the local fridges throughout the Rockaways. So that has been a wonderful partnership that we were able to keep up throughout the 2 seasons. And yeah, where this partnership is going in this year, we're not quite sure yet, but yeah, we definitely have the capacity to keep supporting them. And again, our model is also such that we invite anybody to join us at the farm and walk home with fresh produce. And yet the other initiative that we did that I want to touch on is the community composting, which is on the next slide, because it was, yeah, there was such a strong need for that in the Rockaways because composting was shut down. And for example, in the neighborhood of Edgemere, curbside composting is also not coming back yet. So we're still doing it in full force. And it's just been such a great thing to do together with members of the community. We accept food scraps and yard waste 24/7, and our patrons and anybody who'd really like to join meets every Sunday to move the piles. And it's just a really great way to gather together in fresh air, work on something together, you know, exchange stories and connect. And we're creating really wonderful compost that stays here on the peninsula and that members of our community can use in their own gardens. So that has been a project that really was that increased capacity during the pandemic, that we are really happy to keep going. And so, yeah, those are our efforts. Ways to support us are you can volunteer with us. We invite anybody to volunteer. Like I said, each volunteer can always receive fresh produce in exchange for their work. And it's a really fun activity to do. We are usually running volunteer days from April through November. And you can also follow us at Edgemere Farm. In addition to being an urban farm that produces locally grown fresh produce, eggs, and honey, we also put on small events such as performances, and workshops and free yoga sessions. All our programming that we actually do at the farm is always free. That is one of our core values, that we provide free inspiration and education and access to a beautiful space. So definitely follow us at Edgemere Farm, and you can also subscribe to our mailing list. And of course, donations are appreciated, as we are you know, a volunteer run space.
Thanks so much, Vanessa. It was really great to hear more and all the details of the work you all have been doing. I just want to remind people, if there are any questions you have, you can always drop them in the chat. We're going to have some time at the end of the panel for any audience questions. And we're keeping track of them throughout, so we won't lose track of those. And so right now we'll just kind of run through all of the different work that's been happening here from all of our panelists before moving into questions. So next up, we're going to hear from Chevon Cooper about the really awesome efforts of Bronx Community Farm Hub. Che, are you ready for us?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. So I'm a little nervous because I'm so used to being in the audience and actually on the panel. But I'm sitting home, so I guess I'm a little bit comfortable too. So I'll introduce myself, and then I'll go right into the Bronx Community Farm Hub. So my name is Chevon Cooper. I was born in the Bronx. I'm an HBCU grad from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore School of Agriculture and Natural Sciences. I have my undergrad degree in agricultural studies, and I'm a member of an organization called Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. Currently in class to become a horticultural therapist, and I'm employed with the New York Botanical Gardens Bronx Green Up program. So I'm representing the Bronx Community Farm Hub today. And this was pretty much a network that came together at the start of the pandemic. Bronx Green Up and New York Botanical Gardens came together with urban agriculture leaders and community gardeners to see what could be done to help during the critical time. And we knew Bronx residents were already faced by many challenges, especially having the highest rates of food insecurities in the nation, which would only be made worse by the pandemic. So the result was supporting and helping coordinate gardeners and farms and increasing food production to then distribute to their neighborhoods through the Bronx Community Farm Hubs. Again, this is a collective made up of a core group of 18 neighborhood gardens and farms spread out over the Bronx in 6 different neighborhood hubs, as well as New York Botanical Gardens Edible Academy, which forms another important hub to this network. As a result, all of these efforts, sites are distributing food to the community through many different ways, including community-run markets, NYCHA senior houses, food pantries, and friendly fridges throughout the Bronx. Each year, Edible Academy has grown 10 to 15,000 vegetable starts for the network that we distribute right in time for spring, summer, and late summer planting deadlines. Together, the Farm Hub Network has grown and distributed thousands of pounds of food to thousands of people throughout the Bronx. If you look at this chart right here, you can see the produce that we, oh no, Google Assistant, just listening to everything. Produce harvested at the Edible Academy. So we, the Edible Academy, we start vegetable seeds there, and we have space where we grow produce, and we distributed 7,000 pounds 2020 and 7,135 pounds in 2021. They went out to events just like backpack giveaways, back to school event. What else? Any type of event, Thanksgiving, giveaways. We will load up produce from Edible Academy and take to different sites throughout the throughout the Bronx. I'm sorry. What else do we have here? As you can see, additional produce procured from local farms, and so a lot of the gardeners will sometimes work with other local farms to supplement their farm stands and provide more produce to the Bronx residents in their respective communities. We kind of just help create like a model food distribution where a lot of vendors come in and people are selling things. Communities is getting activated again. A lot of people are out doing things. Kids are coming around. I want to highlight James Baldwin Outdoor Learning Center. There's a lot of good things that are happening with the community on their farm stand days. There's always a great energy, and a lot of other sites out in the Bronx Community Farm Hub are doing the same thing as well. So what else can I say? So the network, we continually regularly meet bi-weekly to coordinate, plan, and continue sharing knowledge and resources for each growing season. We'll talk about anything such as technical assistance as far as crop planting, irrigation, installing, anything that has to do with growing and getting the most produce out of the spaces that we have in the Bronx. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think the next slide. It was actually a video that the New York Botanical Gardens did, getting to know the Bronx Community Farm Hubs. I guess we can share that link through an email or whatever, but you can email us at Bronx Green Up, New York Botanical Gardens if you'd like to sign up, or I can send you the email as well. Sorry. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you, everybody, for your time listening.
Thanks so much, Ted. We can also get all of these links dropped in the chat so everyone has access to them. Make sure they're all sent out after. A lot of inspiration over those numbers that were quantified. It's really incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
So up next, we're going to hear from Gabriel Maldonado and Zoe Tagoe about the work of the Brother Sister Sol. Are you two ready for us?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gabriel Maldonado. I am the steward at Frank White Memorial Garden, and I am also the environmental program facilitator at the Brotherhood Sister Sol. And I'll pass it to Zoe.
Hi, my name is Zoe Tagoe. I'm a steward at Frank White Memorial Garden. I'm also a current member at Gaia Renaissance and from Brotherhood Sister Sol. Yeah.
So I'm actually going to start off a little bit, taking us back. So can you go back to the previous slide? Oh, I think there was a slide missing. That's okay. But I just do want to take everyone back a little bit. So at the peak of the pandemic, one of the big things that we took initiative at the garden as a response was composting. At the peak of the pandemic, the New York Sanitation had suspended a compost project. And what happened was the issue of food waste, right? So we took matters in our own hands, right? And what that looked like was partnering with the Les Ecology Center. And Les Ecology Center is a wonderful site located in Lower East Side. And they're doing a lot of great things in terms of dealing with food waste and continuing the efforts of compost. And we actually transitioned our garden to really push forward a 24/7 drop-off site. And what that meant was folks can come at any time outside of our garden and drop off food waste. And we actually had our young people paid to actually process this compost. And the processing compost actually happened on site as well, utilizing our hot box system, which is probably very well known around the community from Nando Rodriguez. I'm going to pass it to Zoe for the next slide.
All right, so the Brosis response to the pandemic is that we started to deliver emergency food distributions during our bi-weekly food giveaways. We also gave out laptops and hotspots, financial support, mental health support, virtual sessions, check-ins and tutoring, and training and resources for staff. And during this period, we learned that pre-COVID, our community was suffering from a lot of food insecurity that has been an ongoing issue. The pandemic also showed us how broken our food system is today. We don't have sufficient support systems due to the lack of investment in Harlem, and more work needs to be done. So we just need to continue working for justice in our community.
You can take us to the next slide. Thank you. So in many ways, this increased effort means increasing our connected support with our community. And what that looked like, especially during a pandemic, was increasing our newsletters, our notices, especially because our community is a Spanish-speaking community as well. We thought it was very important that we were actually including English and Spanish. We also sent out mass weekly tests to families about our food pantry. And we also created a sign-up program for families, members, and the community interested in our food bags. And with this look, also meeting with our young people, which is also another great thing about our organization, is that we actually transitioned virtually and operated hybridly in order to check in with our members as well. I'll take it to the next slide and so we'll take us from there.
Okay, so the outcomes of our efforts is that we were able to donate $125K in emergency financial assistance to all of our members and families for the Brosis branch, and we were able to deliver 150 laptops and eight Wi-Fi hotspots to support children who were going through remote learning. And we were also able to give out over 1 million meals during our weekly and bi-weekly food distributions to both our youth and our general public. We just reached that milestone last month, so it's a really great, yeah.
Thank you. You can take it to the next slide. And I just want to cap it off. These are our social media handles. My contact is provided below. Again, this is the environmental program facilitator. We're always open for folks to be transparent and come right through our garden. Frank White has been open, and we have been open throughout the pandemic. We've created a space for our young people to be able to continue this effort. So if anybody's interested in volunteering in our garden and learning more about the work that we're doing, definitely send me an email or definitely follow us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gabriel and Zoe. I see people in the chat wanting to connect. So yeah, I hope y'all get in touch with each other. Okay. Next up, we have Paul and Peggy from 615 Green Community Garden. And they're going to be sharing with us about efforts going on in Brooklyn. And after that, we'll be able to really kind of dig deeper into some of the common issues that I see some questions in the chat coming up about. Peggy and Paul, are you ready to take us away?
Yeah, I guess I'll start and we'll kind of go back and forth between us. So my name's Paul Wasserman from 615 Green Community Garden. And Peggy, you might see her as Margaret on the screen. It's the same person. We live right next to the garden and have been longtime members of the garden. Just before we get into sort of an overview of our mutual aid work, just a couple of quick thoughts that we're talking in part as individuals, both of us sort of with long time commitment to social justice activism, immigrant support, and liberatory education. We're both adult educators. And because we live near the garden and during the pandemic, we've been mostly or fully retired, we've sort of been in a position to be point people for the garden's work. So we're talking in part as members of the garden, but also we have our kind of fingers in other kind of mutual aid work as well. And part of our role has been trying to connect all of that from our garden, which compared to some of these wonderful other reports we've heard is pretty small scale. But just wanted to acknowledge before we start that, the mutual aid work we've been doing, we want to honor and celebrate it and all the folks who've helped out with that, but also acknowledge that there's a lot of contradictions and limitations and challenges that we need to address, both us as a garden and I think as a larger mutual aid community as we think about how to move this work forward as the pandemic hopefully passes. So with that, I'll turn it over to Peggy. Are you there?
Sorry, no, I'm unmuted. Hi, my name is Margaret, also Peggy. And this photo that you're seeing right now is from the second year of the pandemic, which was last summer, 2021, where we were unable to get interns. And so our food growing was done with members. So you're looking at myself with some of the younger new members that were really into growing food for our partner, Mixteco organization, which was our partner the second year. Anyway, but I'm supposed to be talking about the history of the garden briefly. When I moved into the neighborhood, that was 1988, the 2/3 of an acre that is now 615 Green was privately owned by a developer, and it was full of construction debris and full of trash and full of drug paraphernalia like syringes and crack vials. And there was a trailer, an abandoned trailer, where actually people would deal drugs and shoot up. And so in September 1988, the community got together and cleaned out that garbage and the trailer. And then from then on, then guerrilla gardening happened. It started happening for several years. And maybe about a few years later, maybe 10 years after the cleanup, there was an anonymous donor who donated money to Brooklyn Queens Land Trust, I think it's called, to purchase the lot. So the lot was never city owned. And so now the lease is held now by BANG, Brooklyn Association of Neighborhood Gardens. And that's the brief history. Very brief. Paul.
Okay, all right, now it's back to me. So a few words about the structure of the garden. We're a totally volunteer garden. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 members, some more active than others. In pre-pandemic times, there's a set of requirements for members to join, which includes doing some kind of a community assignment in the garden, being available for open hours. We have at least 20 hours a week where we're officially open to the community, but whenever there's a garden member present, it's open to the community, and doing some work on what we call group project days. We have also composting in the garden, community open to the community. We host a series of events throughout the year, both ones that we sponsor and others that groups or people from the community come and ask for use of the space. And we're mostly organized around an individual plot structure. We have 30, 35 plots that members who've been members for several years steward, and we view our whole role with the space that the garden occupies as a stewardship. What happened, well, I should say we have monthly membership meetings. We have a steering committee. We're sort of in the middle of kind of transitioning and working through some of our leadership structures, sort of as we try to transition out of the pandemic times. I guess one thing I wanted to say is that most of the food growing that happens in the garden, we do have a group vegetable garden for people who don't have their own plots, but most of the food growing traditionally happens in the individual plots where each steward does whatever they want with their plots. Yeah, hold this slide up there. I'll talk about these folks in a minute. So what happened during the pandemic is that quite a number of our plot stewards, because of the pandemic, were not able to work their plots. And Peggy and I had already gotten involved with South Brooklyn Mutual Aid, which had developed a really robust, well-organized mass food distribution and other kind of mutual aid projects in our part of Brooklyn. And we were doing food deliveries with them. And so the idea came up, why don't we use the plots that folks in the garden aren't able to tend to grow food to contribute to the South Brooklyn Mutual Aid food distribution. So for the first year, which I'm trying to keep the year straight, was 2020, that's what our mutual aid food growing involved. We, a lot of members contributed. We had group work days to clear the plots, get seeds or seedlings in. Another couple who's active in the garden, Trace and Bruce, were there almost every day doing work. lots of people helped out. And then we also had, through South Brooklyn Mutual Aid, 2 wonderful high school interns who you see here, who really helped us out with the harvesting and tending of the plots. And you can see the results of one day's harvest there. So we had a kind of watering schedule that, that was sort of collaboratively implemented. And mostly Peggy and I, but sometimes other garden members, every Saturday drove our little veggie boxes of garden of food that we harvested to the mutual aid, the South Brooklyn Mutual Aid food distribution, and added them in to the boxes of food that they were delivering around South Brooklyn. So that's what our first year looked like. In 2021, South Brooklyn Mutual Aid, at least for a while, lost some of the funding that was supporting their weekly food deliveries. So we needed to figure out another way to use the food we were still going to be growing for mutual aid. And I'll turn it over to Peggy to talk about that.
Okay, so we, the second year, last summer, we partnered with Mixteca organization, which is in the South Slope, 23rd Street in Brooklyn, and about 10 blocks away from the garden. They have food deliveries every Saturday morning. So every Saturday morning we would bring our harvest there.
And community fridge.
And they have a community fridge. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I think just to add to that, and then we can sort of wrap up. Maybe can we get the next slide? There should be one more slide there. Yeah, so this is just to give a little sense. This is a line, and it's only part of the line of folks lining up outside of Mixteca every Saturday to pick up the food that they distribute at their site. And the need that was revealed just during the pandemic, both people signing up at South Brooklyn Mutual Aid and at Mixteca, it's just heartbreaking. And Mixteca, also has like health services out. They had a van doing testing and vaccines. They've serviced the community in a lot of ways, and we really incredibly honor their work. And I think one way or another moving forward, the key to whatever mutual aid work we're going to continue, and that's, we're still working through how we're going to do that in 2022, really is about working with community partners. And I think that, some of the work, particularly what I was hearing in the Bronx of like many gardens working together, community organizations working together, I think that for us, that's a kind of direction that we're hoping not just we at 615 Mutual Aid can work toward, but also the larger movement of mutual aid work, solidarity economy, and building more robust community partnerships and community networks. So we'll leave it at that.
Hey, thank you very much for that. Yeah, and I also appreciate, I guess, like some of the notes on the kind of pain points that happen in mutual aid work, around how do you really actually position yourself in solidarity when you are in such a deeply unequal society as we are in. And being able to really see where there's opportunity to kind of learn across boroughs. So like really just like looking at different case studies, looking at different ways people are organizing themselves, looking at different ways that you can leverage relationships instead of feeling a need to grow and scale everything you're personally doing. Right now, can we all come back together on the screen so that we can have a discussion together? I'm not sure if that's possible on the tech back end here. But I'd like to kind of bring our panelists back so that we can have a conversation together and dig a little bit deeper into, not just what the work looks like, but, as we're, approaching the 2nd year anniversary of this pandemic and having seen many waves of it, knowing that the global community is not fully vaccinated and, we're not really sure what's in the forecast for next year. We will be dealing with some sort of disaster. We're in climate change. We have so many things that we need to respond to within our communities. So all of this work that's been happening, there's been a long-term need for, and there will be a long-term need for. So I'd like us to discuss a little bit about what will take these efforts that have kind of like sprung up in response and make them into these long-term solutions that will eventually build this landscape of solidarity economy that we hope for, that we're looking for, and that we need. So what are the kind of structures that you have been experimenting with, and what are the relationships that you feel are the seeds of that, the things that you want to grow and expand and make more permanent in your work? And anyone can raise their hand if they want to respond to that question. Like, just, what's a seed in your work you'd like to see grow? Go ahead, Paul.
So yeah, just somewhat connected to the last point I made. I think one thing that we're hoping to do, we have a lot of conversations in the garden. We're a democratic community about exactly what shape of work will look like. But to sort of, in a way, break out of the model of our garden, which in a way is really, a fairly privileged space in a privileged neighborhood, donating food that we grow to community organizations to get out to communities, to working with some of our community partners to offer them plots in the garden. I think Peggy and I are certainly going to do that with our plot, to grow their own food and to really sort of try to bridge, it's a very, complicated process, that sort of divide between the different kinds of communities that are, in very different positions in terms of economic security and, access to many of the resources that are available in this rich society. But to really have the garden become more of a shared space with folks who very often don't feel comfortable entering a garden that is open, but just doesn't seem like for their kind of folks. So to work with community partners to really have folks from the communities directly doing some hands in the dirt, growing of their own food and building some bridges in that process.
Yeah, I love that. Like, really thinking of like the actual physical arrangement needing to change. To actually show like this is communally stewarded instead of like kind of quarantined off into different spaces. How about others? Like a system that you experimented with that you think could kind of become the future of what you're doing?
I mean, I can go ahead and speak next for Edgemere Farm. We are very much in a similar position as Paul and Maggie's community garden is in. The farm has had many different shapes since its inception. And we've realized throughout the pandemic that we really want to make sure it is a shared space for the community while we are set up as an urban farm and not with individual plots. and necessarily don't want to convert it to a space of individual plots, because we are very productive in what we're doing, and it works very well for our space. We are currently working on broadening our leadership to bring in more people from the community, bring in more younger folks, and then also really making sure it is understood and well communicated. And that's something that we're working on, that we need to improve moving forward, that anybody can really come, anybody can work at the farm, and anybody can take home produce, and anybody is welcome with their knowledge, or if they don't have knowledge, and really work together on this piece of land. Because during the pandemic, it became so clear that a space like ours, which provides safety and a beautiful and inspiring place, a place to just hang out and enjoy and connect with people safely, is so much needed. And we do want to make sure that it is widely shared and really accessible to everyone. So that is really something that became just very clear during the pandemic. It brought out so many people that just wanted to come and like stick their hands into the dirt, and friendships have been formed, and ideas of ventures have been created. And it just became like from like an urban farm that was growing produce to be sold at a market that wasn't happening at the farm. During the pandemic, we really became a space that reopened its farm stand on site, so that members from the community can just come walk to us, buy their produce. We then later also became a space where programming again was happening in fresh air and safely, from like the free yoga and the free musical performances. It just became this like vibrant, wonderful hangout space. And that's something that we're currently working on, like how can we keep this going in the light of things changing, people returning back to work, not necessarily having the luxury of dedicating their time to a space like ours. So that's a puzzle that we're currently trying to solve.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, I've been seeing this question of labor pop up in the chat as well from audiences. Just wanting to know a little bit more about, like how are you kind of like negotiating the labor needed to really do this significant amount of work, and knowing that all of it is volunteer based, or majority volunteer based. Vanessa, I heard you speak to a little bit of like this element of enjoyment and community connection being something that really draws people in. And, to bring in volunteers, they need to like the work. It's not, you need the work, but you also need to enjoy the community that you're forming through working together. And I think that really challenges ideas of how we relate to labor in our society, where most of it feels very like forced in a way, like we have to work to survive. So how do we commit our labor to something in a way that feels like it increases your feeling of like social sustainability? Are they seeing that like the volunteers they have in their space, or even you yourself, are like feeling a different kind of relationship to your labor, other than a kind of like normal day job or work situation? I can clarify that question too. Like, I guess like what do you feel really compels people to volunteer? Gabriel, I see your hand up. Sorry, it's a little obscure in the trees.
No worries. Yes, let me lower my hand here. So I'd like to add on to a little bit of your first question, and then add on to your second. I think that a lot of folks seeing a lot of synergy in regards to the fact of just having an open space. When I'm working with a lot of our young people, I tell them to really name and claim the name that you are a steward. In many ways, you're a community activist. The very fact that we're actually here in this space, especially more than ever now being in the pandemic, the need to be able to have access to food, and not just food, right? I think that it's important to realize that when we're talking about food, we're talking about something that's nutritious, right? Something that's fresh. You know, West Harlem, there's a great need in the investment in a community where, fresh food is not as easily accessible, right? And I think the power of community gardens is really creating a space where people can actually come to that garden and have access to fresh food. But how do we move between, this, you're talking about the volunteership, right? And making this even more accessible is and I think the open door is for young people to get a stipend, right? To be able to get paid to do this work, especially in a time when things are uncertain. Being able to say that I'm doing composting, I'm planting, and actually be able to get paid at the end. That speaks volumes to the work that that we're trying to show and gain agency for young people to have, because when it comes in the broader schemes like this, when you think about farming and community work like this, it's a very, even the USDA labels it as a very menial job, right? But this is such an empowering opportunity, especially if you're in an inner city when access to food is limited, and when you're blocks away from a supermarket, and the nearest store is a bodega or a liquor store. It is very gray, and I think we need to realize the work that we're doing, and the impact that we're having.
Thank you. Yes, labors of love should also be paid work. Che, please go ahead.
In my experience, I've seen a lot of times when produce is being distributed, that environment, farm stand and activities creating programming around the actual distribution. People, they feel, and especially like there's like food demos and programming such as that. People who are walking by or in the community, they always feel like uplifted to see like, wow, this food came from right here, or wow, they prepared this this way. I've never seen it done like that. And a lot of times people they want to volunteer, and that's one way I've seen a lot of volunteers come into community spaces and actually do work. And then another way, I think in with the Bronx Farm, Bronx Community Farm Hub, because we're such a big network, we kind of alleviate a lot of those problems by helping each other. A lot of times you see that we talk like bi-weekly. I think those bi-weekly calls are very important. When we talk about each other's needs. And we're building a community in the Bronx, and there's a great energy. It's a great vibe that comes with it. And we always love going to each other's gardens and working out and just coming together. Especially, we hadn't seen each other in like, since maybe like November, December, and January, 3 months. Like February, we got together to do some pruning, and everyone was so excited to be at that one warm day we had. So, and that's another thing, the weather. So, as long as the programming and energy is right, I think people, we have to attract volunteers by welcoming them. And one way to welcome them is with the food. Food brings joy to many different cultures. It doesn't matter what background you come from. We all connected through food. So that's another way. And yeah. Oh, and also I'll add as well with Bronx Green Up, having Bronx Green Up to kind of help facilitate the network. We're able to tap into grants and funding to provide stipends. Also, like a lot of the, because remember, each farm is its own, its own thing. So a lot of them, with SYEP during the summer. I also want to highlight Morris Campus Educational Farm. It's a high school in the Bronx. They just got a CTE program. So there's actual agricultural classes in the school, and students come out to the farm. They do work. There's a teacher there. I go and work with them, and they're going to want, to get into, they're going to want to express them. Now that they have the skill, they're going to want to be more. So maybe like tapping into the schools and the community. It just has to be an equal collective, and it's a big table that we have to make sure is very sturdy.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And like getting not just to other gardeners, but to all of the other assets within the community, everything that is tapped into youth networks, everything that is tapped into anything really that's in support of people on the ground doing their work. So we need not only gardens, which are really unincorporated entities, and it's difficult to move money through them. We need to have partnerships in the community where we're able to get money that can be redistributed into the kind of stipends that Gabriel was talking about, paying young people to do work, being able to see that those are viable jobs, making them into viable jobs. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, just listening to what others are saying, there's an interesting sort of, I don't know, companion set of needs about the need for volunteer labor, and yet the need particularly for folks who are struggling economically to have sources of income. And ultimately, I think a lot of our work moving forward is to figure out how to provide structures and the financing or avenues for income that folks who really are, have been thrown out of work, have always been struggling to find, family supporting jobs, undocumented folks, to have income sources from the kinds of mutual aid, solidarity economy projects that we're working on. And, one thing I'm curious about, Jay, from the work in the Bronx, I mean, there is some infrastructure there through Bronx Green Up, through, some of the organizations that are part of your network. And it feels like part of the work is to figure out how to get those kind of infrastructures in place to support the building of, what some people call sort of ecosystems of food justice, solidarity economy, works, sort of projects that can be linked together and really start creating this sort of alternate universe of economic life outside of the corporate dominated food system and other systems that shape our lives. So I'm just wondering, how did that all come together in the Bronx? It just seems like such a robust, multi-pronged effort.
So, well, it was really all due to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, I guess a lot more people will come together during those events like these, the urban bugs, conference, a lot of those events, and that's when everyone will come together. It wasn't so much everyone was communicating on a regular basis. So once the pandemic hit and everyone was like away, and we were trying to figure out everyone, all the people that wanted to garden, they wanted to get in the garden, and it was a lot of it was up and down situation in the beginning because nobody knew what was going on. So I think that is what brought about the conversations, and we just kind of we were there as just like a facilitator for all the Bronx sites, because we already had established relationships with them. through like just providing technical assistance and physical support. So we already like knew gardens, and we knew gardeners knew of each other, but as far as us being collective, it took for the pandemic to hit for the community to really like, buckle down and say, all right, what do we want to achieve? And this is the second year and the third year I'm really looking forward to, because now we can like actually see numbers and actually, look and see what we can make predictions and how we can, and we're looking to improve now. And it's growing. And as situations come about for like, gardeners, I think what's really impressed me is the way that the collective has stuck together and supported each other. And when like it's situations that more political, I guess you would say. And it's just a lot of, sticking together and just that coming to actually all like, gardeners, urban ag leaders and urban farms, just coming together and just, continuously thinking of ways to get better.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate how some of the numbers you're collecting are also like for you. They're not just like to show funders, but they're for you to understand your own work and also to like understand how you all can continue to motivate yourselves by seeing that, like all these really positive results. And understand also like what you can do differently because it is so experimental and new. It gives you something to strategize around. We don't have too many questions coming through the chat from the audience. If there are any audience questions, please drop them in the chat now because we have a little bit of time for that. We have some comments that maybe we can just spin off of. A lot of them around, just comments about how people are not seeing, I guess, like outreach happening in their own gardens, wondering how to kind of like create how you all are dealing with the visibility of your garden to bring in new people, new volunteers, new members. Have you found anything working for you as far as like boosting the visibility of your garden and bringing new people in? Like, how do you get out there? And I know it's like especially challenging and different in pandemic times when the garden hasn't always been open.
I think for us, the most effective tool is really the farm stand that happens in season every weekend, and then also the events. Those are really, what brings people together. And for example, this last season, we found ourselves with way too many hot peppers. So we invited people at the farm stand. We had to sign up to take as many hot peppers of all kinds that they wanted and turn it into a hot sauce for a hot sauce contest. We just collected people's information, and it really hit the nerve with our community and brought in 18 submissions. And then we all came together and it was judged by chefs from local restaurants. And yeah, that was an incredible community builder and also like a really great way for people to flex their muscles, show their hot sauces, and show their heritage through hot sauce, and everybody to have a taste of it, and share also the fruit of our space in a really fun way. So we found those actually the most effective. And then in terms of like our fence line, we always make sure it's, beautifully planted with also, crops that also resonate with our immediate community. And we have very friendly signage, very personalized signage. And always, whenever we're there, we always have an open gate. That's something that we're always keen to do, and we have a huge gate. So yeah, that's how we like to do it. And that's worked for us.
I can add on, and I might actually pivot to Zoe because I think she can really tell a great deal about what some of the work that we're doing but I'll just start off by saying is that really talking with people, understanding what their needs are, right? I think that one of the privileges we have is the plaza that in front of our headquarters at 140 Hamilton Place that was not once a plaza, but it transitioned to what it is, a permanent now location for people to kind of congregate and socialize, but we able to utilize that space, right, to make community events. We actually kicked off we've always had a harvest day in which people can come into our garden and, pick various different kinds of produce, but we made it intentional to really start all right, let's make our unofficial, first annual harvest day. And it was actually that harvest day where, especially in the times of the pandemic, realizing what needs people have. And I think one of the things that our young people actually had the pleasure of making, which Zoe can talk a little bit more, was care packages. You want to speak on a little bit more on what we did at the harvest day, Zoe?
Sure. So for Harvest Day, it was the last day of the food market, and we basically just opened it up to the community. We had care packages of free bulbs for the community to plant for the oncoming spring that would happen. So they'll get some nice tulips and other flowers. And we also offered the community many other opportunities to get to learn more about our community. We have in the summer during my time in Gaia Renaissance, we made these community games to sort of engage the community more in planting. And we brought those back for Harvest Day so that, the community could learn more about the different types of plants and how you grow them and other stuff. Most of the community spoke Spanish, so it was hard to get a translator sometimes. But overall, a lot of the people involved were very appreciative and thankful that we involved them in learning more about our community. And to go back a bit, when you're talking about how we involve the community more, I'm going to talk from my experience on how I found Brosis, specifically Gaia Renaissance. One of my seniors, she gave a flyer to the guidance counselor, the flyer that they post every year for people to get involved in the program and what it's about. And with that flyer, there was a few people from my school who were able to come learn about gardening, and that's how I became involved in this. So that's one of the methods that our garden and Brosis as a whole involves our youth and other members into our garden work. And we also do the weekly market selling on Wednesdays, and weekly surveys and stuff to just get the community involved, so yeah.
Thanks so much. Those are all really, really amazing. Let's see. We do have this question, which I think will be a nice closing one, if we can all if I can have all of you go around with this. But from Lauren Wang, back to the labor, we'd love to understand a typical day in the life for an example of the work the panelists are doing now in February to ramp up for the growing season. Maybe also speaking to what you're up to now and what you're kind of looking forward to as we're moving into the spring coming soon. What are you excited for? And what are you preparing for?
So I'll go. So I feel like now we really pretty much just been getting as organized as possible. Just organizing different days on the calendar, just preparing for spring. We already started doing a lot of pruning. Make sure that gardeners who have trees have all their trees are pruned to grow. And I think just looking forward to seeing those numbers. And I'm a numbers guy, I guess. I don't know. I just looking forward to seeing those numbers and keep it moving up, so that we can. I really think that we can. Well, I've seen it. Just supplementing our food system to the food system as we know it, what it is today. We can definitely supplemented, localizing agriculture. And I think, just being a part of the Community Farm Hub, I'm seeing these numbers and it's getting me excited, like you said. So I'm just looking forward to those numbers and going up, doing things to make them go up, improve. But we.
Thanks. That's great. Anyone up next? What are you looking forward to for the season?
Well, I can honestly say we're really excited to be our Earth Day event that's coming up. That's going to be on April 22nd. And then we're going to be having our annual Planting and Art Weeks, which we encourage so many people to come through. It's a really wonderful event in which we invite some community members and then a bunch of our programs from Sis participate in 2 weeks of just planting and making art. And this happens from April 25th through May 5th. And then we usually cap off on May 6th as a community barbecue. And we've been doing this for many years now. So we're super excited to keep it going because this is, people are excited.
So I guess I could jump in. I'm looking forward to deepening our partnerships with Mixteco organization and also with Project Reach Youth, which is another organization that we could potentially partner with that is in our neighborhood. And I'm looking forward to deepening the conversations about mutual aid inside the garden. And, because we have over 100 members, not all of whom are necessarily on board with mutual aid. I think we need to have more conversations internally. That during 2020 and people were just not present. So it was easy to say, oh yeah, you can use my plot to, go for mutual aid. But now that people are coming back, to what extent is that, is the buy-in there to continue the mutual aid work among those 100 members? And so I feel like we need to have a lot of conversations internally.
Maybe I'll just add a few things to what Peggy was saying, that more from the organizational end. I think there's a lot of challenges this year because during the pandemic, we did away with all the usual requirements, and it was all people showing up voluntarily to do work. And we did a lot of amazing things and hosted a lot of events. But part of what this time of year is about is sort of getting our organizational act together, where we need to create sort of a new steering committee. A lot of our veteran members, just haven't been able to step up as much as they used to. We have a lot of newer members who have brought some new energy to garden. I could give a shout out to Lila, who's the tech support here, who's definitely been, a mainstay of our garden in this past year. And we also are going to start having new members coming in. We usually get a flood of interest. That's sort of our challenge, is sort of how to bring people into the garden and keep them engaged. And we need some better systems for that in the garden, because a lot of people join and then don't really know how to sort of connect. It feels like we have a lot of potential energy in the garden, and we don't always know how to harness it and how to really build community and bring new members into that community. So in addition to the kind of partnerships that Peggy's talking about, I'm looking forward to, but it's a challenge, the sort of internal work and we are having our annual spring festival, May 7th or 8th, I think it is, which is kind of our coming out to the community. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, what we're busy with right now at Edgemere is, of course, also planning the season, planning our calendar of events. And what I'm really looking forward to doing this year is we actually want to get an internship program off the ground. for local young adults. And for the first time ever, we're dipping our toes in applying for grant money so that we're able to pay those young folks a stipend and make their time worthwhile with us. So I'm really looking forward to getting that going, and hopefully through that finding the next generation of leaders at Edgemere.
Thanks. Zoe, you want to close us out?
Sure. To like go on what Gabe was saying, we're also going to continue our in-person hours for our 3 core groups, and prepare for Earth Day, and the art and music, and all of our different programs. And we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing and continue to get the community involved. And in a few weeks, hopefully we'll reopen our market, our green market, to the community so that they can continue buying produce from us. Yeah.
Thank you. And we have so one more thing I wanted to lift up from audience questions. Someone else who's looking forward to the growing season. Do y'all have any advice to give a 16-year-old who wants to start a school garden in Westchester County? This person's already had a little chat with Che, but wants to know the thoughts of the other panelists.
Can you, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again, Emilie? Just to.
So any advice to give a 16-year-old who wants to start a school garden in Westchester County?
I would definitely, and like, oh, kudos, bravo. That sounds awesome. And I just love the fact that, you know, someone that as young as that is just like already starting to think about starting their own garden. I would say, you know, start connecting with your community, right? Think about, you know, who's in your neighborhood, you know, think about there's any local organizations. I think it takes a village. You know, I think that there's a lot of power that a young person at 16 is already starting thinking about this. And, you know, definitely connect with your school, you know, and I think that just trying to connect with the right folks that are interested and like really dedicated to this work to really help start and kickstart this. I think that, you know, I think it just starts with the community, right? It's just starting local. And then from there, you can really get to understanding of your community and where you want to start, you know, because, you know, I think that it's a beautiful thing. So good luck to you.
Any others? I see lots of advice flowing through the chat too. Finding other students, connecting to your school principal, building a team, science teacher is your best friend. Yes, definitely connecting to all the leadership within the school, going to PTA meetings, student council. Lots of organizing. How about the rest of y'all? Zoe, any youth to youth advice?
I guess I'll really just say keep connections with your friends and close like people in your grade group so that they can help you out. As Gabe was saying, you know, it takes a village to help out. So just and keep, you know, keep on going. If some parts aren't really going your way, don't let it get to you or get you down. Just keep your head up and just keep moving because what you're doing is really great. I know my school has a garden and it's a really popular club right now. So I feel like what you're doing would really help the community out.
Okay, thank you. I so appreciate everything that y'all have brought, all the work you're doing, all the work you're looking forward to doing. Everyone in the audience, please send some love to our panelists. And in our last 5 minutes together, I also want to just open up the chat for all of the audience to celebrate their gardens mutual aid work, because I know that there are so many gardens out there who have been doing similar work, who have been working in collaboration in the Bronx, who have been doing all the on the ground work as well. So please shout out your garden's efforts in the chat. We'll try to read some off as they scroll through. If you have anything that you've been doing you want to celebrate, let us know. And we can also move this conversation onto this GreenThumb Slack, the Grow Together Slack for this conference, so that y'all can keep connecting about your garden's mutual aid work and your strategies for doing mutual aid work. If there's peer support you can offer or questions that you want to know more about. There were some specific questions about funding sources, things like that, that I think could really take some life in a conversation going forward. I'm seeing lots of appreciation for you all. Wonderful stewards. Thank you. Everyone really appreciates the prepared presentations. Great work. Mara dropped a link into the Slack so that the conversation can keep going beyond the Zoom session.
I'm going to jump in here and thank Emilie and the panelists. Thank you all so much. While we're inviting people to shout out their gardens work in the chat, I'm gonna close out our plenary panel and invite everyone to turn on their cameras, go to gallery view so you can actually wave hello to everybody else who's here at the GreenThumb Grow Together conference. The conference is always a family reunion. It's always so much fun to get to see everyone, and we can do our best to recreate that in a virtual space. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. You all shared so much with us today, and we really appreciate you taking the time on a Saturday to share all of your amazing work over the past few years. And thank you so much to Emilie for your skilled moderation and for being such a wonderful partner of GreenThumb.